Sometimes you just don't have enough PTO for a 2-day scenic long distance train ride plus time to sightsee once you arrive. So as someone who has spent over 200 plus hours on Amtrak, I wanted to share 4 rides that I recommend for beginner train travelers that will be perfect for short day trips or weekend trips that are under 3 hours. Hi, for those who may be new here, my name is Sojourner, aka Sojournies, aka the train travel queen, and I am a full-time travel vlogger who loves train travel. However, I know that not everyone can spend multiple days on the train, nor do you want to always splurge on those pricey roomettes in the sleeper cars that y'all know I love, but I know are not the most accessible and affordable. So I wanted to give y'all some ideas for shorter train rides. I have 4 of them and they're all on my iPad with my notes. That'll be really helpful for y'all if you are looking to do a weekend trip or a day trip, but you don't know where to start. And if you are looking to plan a train ride, I do have a free train trip checklist. I always get that tongue-tied, but it's linked in the description box below if you want to use it to plan your next train ride. And my first recommendation is probably my favorite Midwest ride and the one I have done the most, and is the Amtrak Hiawatha from Milwaukee to Chicago. I love this ride. I am born and raised in Milwaukee, so anytime I am bored or want to go somewhere and just kind of get away for a little bit, I always see if there's some availability on this train. It's only an hour and a half long one way, so it's 3 hours round trip, and I think that this train runs pretty frequently, so you can make it a day trip or you can extend it over the weekend if you really want to eat your way through Chicago, which I recommend because it is one of my favorite summer cities and I think very underrated. I also love this ride because you are dropped off in the heart of both cities. So the Amtrak station in Milwaukee is located in downtown Milwaukee, and the Amtrak station, which is Union Station in Chicago, is located in downtown Chicago. So you're able to get an Uber or even take public transportation to get to your next location to do your sightseeing or your eating or whatever you're doing once you arrive. As far as the train itself, this ride is $25. They only have coach class on this train, so it's literally a free for all. There are no assigned seatings. You kind of just line up and hopefully you get the seat that you want, but it's a very chill ride. There also is no cafe car. However, in the Amtrak stations in Milwaukee and Chicago, there are places for you to grab some snacks to take with you on the train ride before you go. So there is no business class on this train, there is no cafe car, and there also is no Wi-Fi. So I have my handy dandy travel Wi-Fi, my Sapphire Power. I've been showing this on my page for a very long time. It's not only Wi-Fi, but also a power bank, and it is my favorite one. I got this back in 2023 when I was at Women in Travel Summit in Puerto Rico. Travel Wi-Fi was there, and I have been looking for a 2-in-1, and it's literally perfect. I will link it in the description box below if you're interested, but for any time I mention not having Wi-Fi on the train, but bringing it, this is what I'm talking about, because I personally don't like to use my hotspot because it'll drain my battery on my phone. So if you're taking the Hiawatha or really any Amtrak route, I highly recommend investing in one of these if it's something you do often, just because personally I find that the Wi-Fi is very hit or miss, and on the Hiawatha it just has never worked for me, like ever. But if you do want a business class experience in the Midwest, you can take the Amtrak Borealis from Milwaukee to Chicago or Chicago to Milwaukee. I actually took the Amtrak Borealis from Milwaukee to Minneapolis last June, so I will link that vlog somewhere in the video, but also in the description box below. And it was a great route. However, it does start in Chicago. So if for some reason the Hiawatha is full or you just can't get on it, there is a second option now, and it's one of Amtrak's newer rides and newest line in the Midwest. And on the Borealis, you do get business class and you do get a cafe car because it is going a lot further than the Hiawatha. The Amtrak Hiawatha is one of my favorite Midwest rides. However, I would not say it is a short and scenic train ride at all. So if you are looking for a more scenic adventure, I would actually and going to the West Coast and choosing the Amtrak Pacific Surfliner from Los Angeles to San Diego. If you were following along during my 30th birthday train trip around the US, you know I just took the Pacific Surfliner last summer. It is my favorite coastal ride. I took it for the first time back in 2022, and I intentionally made a stop in San Diego to take this train just because I love it that much. It's so pretty. I sat on the left-hand side per the instruction of my car attendant. However, definitely ask them what side is the best, because I've heard when I've posted that video that there were mixed reviews, that someone told them sit on the right-hand side, but I am certain I sat on the left-hand side. So if you are confused on how to get the best ocean views as you are taking this ride, then go and ask the car attendant. Always. This train ride has business class and coach class, so you have both options. I opted for business class, which is what the vlog showed, as well as things to do once you get in San Diego, primarily things to eat, because I went there to eat for the day. So you can make it a day trip or a full weekend trip, because it is a 3-hour ride one way, but I recommend business class. I enjoyed the extra space. I did a little work. I did have, as I mentioned previously, my hotspot. Even though I think the Wi-Fi was actually pretty decent on this ride, I still needed a little bit faster, so I opted for my travel Wi-Fi Sapphire Power. But obviously do what works for you. And they did give me snacks on this train. I think the first time I took it, they gave me like a snack box or like some wine or something like that. So they do have some snacks for you when you're on this train and you do book business class. And as far as prices, this train ride I think only cost me $55 or so one way. So I think it's a pretty affordable way to take a little break from the city and go to another coastal city. Okay, we've been in the Midwest, we've been on the West Coast. Now we're gonna go over, and my last 2 rides are actually on the East Coast. And the first one is the Amtrak Down Easter that I took from Boston to Portland, Maine. So I took this actually a few years ago, I believe in December 2023, as part of a partnership with Visit Maine. And it was a really cute ride. I haven't done a whole lot of East Coast train travel, so I hope to change that in the future, but this one was really cute. I did it the first week of December, so there wasn't any snow yet. However, I think this will be a really great ride to take in the fall time, because you're going through like New Hampshire and you're making your way to Maine. There's like a lot of forest when you do go. Something to note about the Down Easter too is that they have multiple train stations in Boston, which is new to me because in Milwaukee we only have one. So I took this train from the Boston North Station, and I wouldn't say it was really busy, but I feel like the hustle and bustle of train stations on the East Coast is very different from the hustle and bustle that we don't really have too much in the Midwest. So if you do get overwhelmed by train stations, I would recommend leaving a bit earlier so that you know exactly where you're going. On this one, I did also take business class, which was $50, which again, it's not really expensive for what you are getting. And the Amtrak Down Easter is only 2.5 hours, so you could also make this one a day trip, because they do run pretty frequently if you check the Amtrak Down Easter website. Or of course, you can opt and go for the entire weekend. And finally, the 4th route that I recommend is the Amtrak Acela from DC to New York City. If you don't know, the Acela is like the fastest train that we have in the US, which I know people are gonna say the trains are so slow. It's not saying too much. I know, but it is considered the fast train. And it did feel a lot smoother when I took it this past summer. I did actually take it from DC to New York City. This is also one of 2 Amtrak trains that I've actually had to choose assigned seating or got assigned seating. The first one was the Amtrak Crescent, which was the night train I took from Atlanta to Charlotte last summer, and they gave me a seat upon arrival. So I checked in and they said, here, you're gonna sit in like whatever the number or letter is up there. However, when I was booking the Acela, I actually chose my seat in the Amtrak system. So it's something to keep in mind when you are deciding to take this ride or not. I will also say that it is a bit pricey. It's a bit pricier for a non-room compared to some of the other rides that I've taken. I think tickets can be like $80 to $100 or so one way going from DC to New York if you want to sit in business class, because there is no coach class. So if you're like, I don't want to pay that much, you might want to opt for the Northeast Regional, which is the same route, but I think probably a bit slower because it is not considered a fast train if you decide that you don't want to spend that much money on business class. And even though I opted for business class, they do have a first class. I'm putting in air quotes because I'm so curious about what this first class is. We don't have this in the Midwest, and to my knowledge, there aren't any first class trains outside of like the sleeper cars on the West Coast. So it seems like the first class is an elevated business class, but not like a sleeper car roomette experience. So I'm really curious about that, and maybe I'll do a trip later on this summer, maybe taking the whole route from DC to Boston in first class just to see what it's like and do a comparison, since I've already been in business class from DC to New York City. And because of DC to New York, it's going to be under 3 hours, and you can opt for it to be a day trip, but obviously whether you're going to New York or going to DC, there's more than enough to do for a weekend. Now, obviously, there are way more trains you can take and different stops you can make. So don't take just these 4 rides as the only ones you can take in the US. Definitely go to Amtrak.com to check out all the different routes they have and really peruse the site. I think the Amtrak website gets a bad rep, but the Amtrak.com/routes page is probably my favorite page on their website because it shows you all the different routes, and it also lists all the different cities you can go to at the bottom of the page. So if you're curious if maybe the Acela stops on your East Coast town, or maybe if you're on the West Coast and you want to know just how far the Pacific Surfliner goes, definitely go to that webpage to see all the different options, because there are way more cities where I'm sure you can do train rides that are under 3 hours long that I did not mention in this video. As you may have noticed, there are no southern routes in this video because I have not taken short ones in the South. I find the South to be unfortunately very difficult to navigate as a train traveler. I hope one day that that'll change, but I think I might do a part 2 if y'all are interested in doing some longer routes that are maybe 3 to 10 hours long, or like 5 to 10 hours long, or something like that, because I find that's more of a sweet spot for a lot of the southern cities that I have been wanting to go to or that I've already done. So I do hope that we get more short route or short train in the South one day. That is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you got some ideas. I hope I got that blood flowing so you can decide whether or not you want to take a short train ride this year. As always, leave any comments or questions below. Don't forget to get that free train trip checklist that is linked in the description box below. Stay curious, and I will talk to y'all in my next video. Bye.